It's the Chronicles of a Gooner, and we are live.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to another live edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, we're going to be bringing you updates on Arsenal's pursuit of Lokonga, Maddison, Ben White. We're going to be talking through all the transfer stuff because yesterday, from an Arsenal perspective, was a really crazy day. I don't think many people saw coming. We're also going to touch on the interest in Aaron Ramsdale, as well as take your questions towards the end of the podcast. So if you are in the live chat, let us know you're there. Say hello, and we'll pick up your questions as we go on throughout the show. Great to see some of the usual faces in the chat box. Hope you guys are all well. Hope you guys are coping with the change of weather. You know, it was scorching hot here yesterday in London, to the point where I was sitting outside topless with a nice cold beer watching the Euros in the garden. And today I had to run across the garden to get to the man cave because I didn't want to put trainers on, because I didn't want to accept that flip-flops were not acceptable in this weather anymore. And I ran through a couple of puddles of rain and I regretted that instantly. But that's another story for another day. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't checked it out already, our Euro 2020 daily podcast is out. We looked at last night's games. I was joined by Dan DeLuca and Stel from Shoot the Defense. So please head over and check that out. The Euros content is really picking up over the last few days. It's really gained some momentum in terms of numbers, which is great because I wondered how it was going to go down on what is an Arsenal channel. But it's great to see that you guys are interested in different types of content as well. And it's something I'll bear in mind moving forward and into the new season. So any feedback on any shows that we do are very much appreciated. And a big thank you, of course, for your support. Without further ado, let's get into some of these transfer stories. And as I say, yesterday was a crazy day. We heard about the interest in Sheffield United's Aaron Ramsdale. We heard about Arsenal's interest the night before about James Maddison, the Leicester City attacking midfield player. Then we heard that Arsenal had a bid rejected for Ben White. We heard that Arsenal had rejected a bid themselves for Emile Smith-Rowe from Aston Villa. So a bit of a crazy day. And I'm anticipating a slightly quieter day today, but that's probably a good thing because it gives us a chance to kind of dig into some of these stories a little bit deeper rather than just kind of skimming over them. Because I did feel yesterday, because there was so much, that when I listened back to a couple of the podcasts that we did 3 Arsenal podcasts yesterday and one Euros one, so 4 pieces of content. But when I listened back to a couple of them, I felt like we skimmed over the stories a little bit, and that's because there wasn't as much information available as there is now. There have been updates coming through, filtering through, if you like, from various journalists, various people who are close to the club. And so I'm in a position now where I can give you guys a little bit more detail on some of these stories. So let's do exactly that, and let's kick off with the Ben White story. Now, Ben White, among the English-based players that Arsenal seem to be pursuing, is the one at which things seem to be the most advanced. Now, Charles Watts of goal.com, Charles is fantastic, a big fan of what he does. He sort of dropped a video earlier on today when he explained a little bit more, and his updates are in line with some of the updates that we've had from the likes of Chris Wheatley and Fabrizio Romano, etc. But the update on Ben White and Arsenal's interest in the Brighton defender is as follows. Now, apparently, his agent has already visited London Colney, and Ben White, who of course is well aware of Arsenal's interest in him, is very keen on a move to Arsenal. He has been very impressed by what his representatives have been told by Edu with regards to how he will fit in, how he's seen as part of the future at Arsenal, and what his role will entail moving forward. It's also alleged that there's an acceptance at Brighton and Hove Albion that Ben White will be leaving this summer. Now, remember, last summer, Brighton fended off interest from Leeds United and they stood their ground. But after another difficult season for Brighton, in which they actually played some pretty decent football up until the final third of the pitch, there's a bit of a kind of acceptance now that it's probably the right time to raise some money and to give Graham Potter what he needs essentially to take the team on to the next level. And by the next level, I mean, into being a mid-table side rather than a side who are, I know they weren't right at the end of the season, but they're always seem to be around the relegation fight. And that's something that Brighton will want to steer well clear of. And in selling somebody like Ben White and raising what's going to be for sure in excess of £40 million, they may be able to give that to Graham Potter to go and do the business that he needs to do in order to achieve those things. So there is an acceptance, probably a little bit of a reluctance given how good he is and how good he could potentially go on to be. But there is an acceptance at the Amex Stadium that it's probably time to let Ben White go. Now, Arsenal's initial offer of £40 million was rebuffed. We don't know what the structure of that deal is exactly, or what the structure of Arsenal's offer is. And it's why I said yesterday on one of our shows that it might not necessarily be a case of Brighton not being open to selling Ben White for 40 million. It might be a case of Brighton not accepting the way in which that offer was structured. And that's something that Arsenal have been notorious for, isn't it, in recent seasons, essentially pissing clubs off by going and making offers that reflect probably something close to the player's true value, but don't necessarily result in that club getting the money up front and then being able to go and replace that player instantly. And that has been a bit of a problem. So it looks like Ben White wants to come. It looks like Arsenal desperately want him. I am surprised. I've said it before. I am surprised that Arsenal see a centre-back that high up the list of priorities. I am surprised that Arsenal are willing to make such a significant investment in that position, given that there are other areas in which we need to strengthen. But, Mikel Arteta obviously likes this guy, and Edu obviously likes this guy, and Arsenal obviously see this as a worthwhile investment. I've already mentioned that Arsenal are yet to meet Brighton's asking price, but from what we're being told, I don't think Arsenal are too far away. I think we're talking about £5-6 million different in terms of where Brighton want to be and where Arsenal are at currently. So this deal feels like it really could happen. And if you'd have told me this a week ago, I would have probably laughed it off. But it's a story that's gathered pace very, very quickly. Of course, Ben White is currently on international duty with England. Obviously that makes things a little bit more difficult. But I'm sure that if Arsenal can sort of get things done, get things lined up, then it won't be too long before Ben White is an Arsenal player, unless something changes. Let's see what else we've got in the chat box from you guys. Let's see what you guys are saying. I love this. From Matt. He says, I bet Arteta told him he'd win the Champions League in 3 years. It worked on Willian. It did indeed. What else have we got here? Chris says, because we want ball playing centre backs. I know that we want ball playing centre backs, but it just, if you asked me at the start of the summer to write a list of priorities this summer, Ben White and a centre back wouldn't have been at the top of that list. Defending wasn't really an issue for Arsenal last season. There were moments where we made the kind of individual errors that have plagued us and haunted us for many, many seasons. But overall, we did improve defensively. And the problem was that we weren't as good at the other end of the pitch. And that was the big deal. What else have we got? A couple of you commenting about my haircut. Cheers. Thank you, Matt. Yep, I did. I went and got a haircut yesterday. And a beard trim. Been a while. Really has. What else have we got? Louis Robson says it will take a bid of £55 million. They won't accept 45. I'm not claiming to be in the know on this. I'm just going by the reports that I've read and what we've heard. From what we understand, there isn't that much of a gap between what Arsenal's opening bid was and what Brighton would be willing to do a deal at. But that's just the information that's being relayed to us. Maybe they will play hardball. Maybe they will demand more. I'm not in a position to say whether that's true or not, and I wouldn't want to lie. So I'll be honest. For me, what I've heard, it seems as though it is going to be somewhere around the 45, 46 million pound mark that will trigger Brighton into allowing the player to leave the club. So that is the latest on Ben White. Hold fire on the questions, guys. We're going to pick up on those in a few minutes' time. I just want to bring you a couple more updates. Let me see what we've got here. James Maddison is another player that Arsenal are being heavily linked with. And whilst there is a real interest in the Leicester man, Mikel Arteta said to be a huge fan of James Maddison, the talks are no way near as advanced as the Ben White talks are. So there hasn't been an official bid. There hasn't been initial contact with the club, not even just to kind of test the waters out, like there has been obviously with Ben White. But Arsenal's interest in James Maddison, according to a number of reliable sources, is very, very real. Whether that materializes into a deal or not, though, remains to be seen. And James Maddison is someone who you could probably reliably say that Leicester would be looking for in excess of £50 million for. Talked a bit about James Maddison yesterday. I like him. I think there have been dips in James Maddison's career. Every player goes through them, but if you're telling me that we could spend 50, 60 million pound on an attacking midfielder, I'm not sure that my first choice would be James Maddison, but I think he's a good player. And I think that the fact that he is, Premier League proven appeals to a lot of fans out there who value that very, very highly. I'm not sure about this one, though. I'm told that the interest is real. We're all told that the interest is real. We've heard that it's real, and it might be real, but I just can't see Arsenal and Leicester coming to an agreement that is reasonable and one that fits within Arsenal's budget this summer. So not sure about that one. Moving on, of course, Arsenal are interested in Albert Lokonga, the Anderlecht midfielder. And we know last week that Arsenal had a £13 million bid rejected for the Belgian. He is very much seen as the future, we are told, by the Arsenal hierarchy. And if he was to come in, he'd likely come in alongside another central midfielder, especially with Granit Xhaka looking to leave the club this summer. So Albert Lokonga would be coming in with a view to the future, and Arsenal are expected to go back in with another improved offer for him. A couple of other bits and pieces I just wanted to touch on. A little bit of an update on Matteo Guendouzi. It's understood that there's some interest from Germany now in Matteo Guendouzi, with Borussia Dortmund eyeing up a move, looking to potentially hijack Marseille's deal, although Fabrizio Romano last reported that Marseille were very advanced in their discussions over Matteo Guendouzi. So it's going to take a bit of effort for Dortmund if they're going to hijack that one. With regards to Hector Bellerin, there is no agreement that will see Hector Bellerin leave the club just yet, but it is said that there is interest from Villarreal, Sevilla and Atletico Madrid in the event that they sell Kieran Trippier, which is a real possibility this summer. But Unai Emery, of course, the current Villarreal boss, is a very huge admirer of Hector Bellerin and is keen to do that deal. At the moment, though, Arsenal are not budging on the £20 million asking price that they have set for Bellerin. I'm not sure that that's going to be met. So I think if we're going to move Hector Bellerin on this summer, we're probably going to have to reduce that slightly in order to get a deal done. A couple of other points I just wanted to touch on before we go over to your questions, and start getting the questions in the chat box now. Stick a queue at the beginning of them so that I can pick them out from the chat box easily. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that like button. I can see there are plenty of you watching us right now. We've got over 125 of you watching on YouTube alone. So please do hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you wish to support the podcast, you can check out our membership scheme by clicking on the link in the description. We've only got 28 likes. Let's get that up to 75 as quick as possible. So we heard reports yesterday, and I don't know how true this is, and I've got to stress that I don't know if this is true. I'm not, I don't want to claim that it is when it might not be, but we read that Arsenal had taken a massive loan from Barclays Bank that they're going to use essentially to fund these transfers or to kick off their transfer window prior to completing any player sales. And I thought this was a little bit strange because, we just paid off a loan and now we're taking another loan. And it just feels like, we're just digging ourselves into a hole. I talked a lot about not necessarily expecting Arsenal to go big in the transfer market. I didn't anticipate Arsenal going to take a loan out to do so, or to at least kickstart the market and to help them pursue some of their initial targets, prior to completing any sales, etc., etc. But it seems that might well be the case. And I'm a little bit worried about the kind of longer term future for the club if we keep getting in these positions where we're taking huge loans out to do things. The self-sustaining model thing has been incredibly frustrating over the years, and it's seen Arsenal, in my opinion, drop significantly in terms of their standards, in terms of their stature as a football club. And I don't really, obviously I don't like the self-sustaining thing because it hasn't really worked for us. But equally, I don't think you can go from one extreme to the other and then start loading yourself up with debts. It just feels a little bit crazy. Matt G says, I don't think taking a loan is a big deal. It's like the transferring of your credit card balance. Yeah, I agree with that. But we know that Arsenal took that big loan from the government, which they paid off by restructuring some debt. Now, I don't know if this loan that is rumoured is an additional loan to that in order to use it on transfer fees, or if it's part of that, or if it's the same sort of issue that Arsenal are trying to address, or the same finance debt, whatever you want to call it, that Arsenal are trying to clear, and it's kind of got caught up in the crossfire when regards to talking about how Arsenal are going to do their transfer business. I'm not 100% sure, so I do want to stress that point, but it does feel a little bit worrying that Arsenal are having to reach for bank loans in order to do some transfer business, which, it's not ideal. And the other thing is, it just feels like chaos. Is there a plan this summer? Is there actually a plan? Or is it just all chaos? Because in the last few days, we've been linked with so many different players. We've said to have made bids for 4 players, according to Chris Wheatley the other day, over the last week. And, Arsenal traditionally, historically, have always gone about their business very quietly and sort of, transfer business from our perspective has always bubbled under the surface and has rarely kind of become common knowledge until sort of the latter stages of negotiations. But it feels like this summer it's the complete opposite. And as I say, it feels like complete and utter chaos. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Sometimes when there's a lot of noise, that noise doesn't come to much. And sometimes actually Arsenal are at the best when they do it, when they do things quietly and they get on with it behind the scenes, and most of us are none the wiser. Am I just kind of getting caught up in the fact that, the media world is a lot different to what it was before, and maybe wouldn't have heard a lot about some of the stuff that we hear about nowadays? I don't know if it's me being a bit of a traditionalist, but I just find it strange that Arsenal's dirty laundry essentially is being aired so publicly. And it concerns me a little bit, because what it does is it tells everybody about our state. It tells everybody about how desperate we are to do certain deals, and all that does is just push up asking prices and make things more difficult, in my opinion. But let's see how it pans out. It is strange. I did find yesterday a really strange day with just the number of reports that came out regarding the Arsenal from good sources as well, which obviously gives them a lot more credibility. But yeah, it's just, it doesn't feel Arsenal, if that makes sense. But there you go. That's just my view. Let's pick up some of your questions from the live chat. Let's see what you guys have got to say. M says, Harry, do you now believe that we will spend big? It looks like Arteta was telling the truth about the owner's investment. I think we'll spend 150 million plus. I don't believe anything until it's done, because I've been burnt by that in the past. Arsenal have always talked the talk, but not always walked the walk. And that's the reality of things at this football club. In terms of Arteta telling the truth about, owner investment, I don't think owner investment is the same necessarily as borrowing. And, the Kroenkes have the money to spend if they want. We know how much they're worth. We know, all the different franchises and different companies, etc., that they have. And we know how powerful they are in the financial world. So I'm not sure that borrowing money from a bank in order to kickstart your transfer business while you're waiting for player sales that you hope to go through, it qualifies as owner investment. But maybe Arteta had those assurances, or at least that one way or another that that those funds would be available to him. And if that's the case, then fair play. But let's see. I'm not going to get carried away with it until I see those players standing, as I always say, pictured on the Arsenal website with a shirt in their hands. That's when we'll know. What else have we got here? Boris says, question, would White, Maddison, Lokonga, Camavinga, Onana, Ryan, a right back and a left back be the perfect transfer window? 10 out of 10. It'll be a good transfer window. I'm not sure it's the perfect transfer window, but it would be a good one. In answer to your question, I think there's still a lot of Arsenal's targets that I'm a little bit uncertain about. And as I say, when we kind of get a little bit more information, we'll be in a better position to kind of judge on that and work out whether we think that these deals are the right value for money. Let's see. What else have we got? Dyer says, Harry, if our owners aren't giving us money, what do you expect us to do? Yeah, I get that, but it just doesn't sit right with me, mate, because the owners have money. So loading the club up with the debt just to kind of for them to avoid loading the club up with debt can't be good for them, right? Because it's their club. So I just don't understand it. I don't understand why people would, or why anybody would put their business under further strain rather than tapping into funds that they actually do have. I don't get it. And I think it makes me feel a little bit uneasy, rightly or wrongly. It's just the way I feel about it. Let's pick up a couple more. Matt says, how long before Arsenal are asking Aubameyang to sell some of his cars to pay off some of the club's debt? Yeah, probably not far off, mate. John Daly says, finally, we're having an English spine if these transfers happen. It's nice that we're finally being linked. Do you believe that this could be a make or break season for the owners and Arteta? I think it's a make or break season for Mikel Arteta, but I think the Kroenkes are in this for the long haul, unfortunately. I've said it before, only when the club is incredibly badly damaged, which nobody wants to see, will they probably consider moving away and walking away. And my worry is that if we allow it to get to that point, to the point whereby they do get up and say, let's go, then, can we recover from that? That's the big issue. What else have we got here? Anurag says, with FFP relaxed, this is the only window we can make it work in our favor. But strangely, it doesn't sit well with me. Any thoughts? I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from. It's we could make it work for us, and obviously that's a great thing. But it still needs to materialize. Those deals still need to be done. There's a lot of talk and there's a lot of hot air at the moment. But until those deals are actually complete, I'm going to be reluctant to say that Arsenal can cash in on this opportunity and can take it, and therefore push the team on to the level that they need to be at. Let me pick up this one from Vikshan, who says, Harry, is the Locatelli signing is the Locatelli signing possible realistically? So Manuel Locatelli is an incredibly gifted player, and I think last night's performance for Italy against Switzerland really put him on the map for those who perhaps don't follow Serie A as closely, because Manuel Locatelli plays for Sassuolo at the moment. They're not the most glamorous of clubs. They're not the most high profile of Serie A clubs. And I think it's very rare, unless they're playing one of the big boys, that the casual kind of Serie A fan would sit and watch Sassuolo in action. But Manuel Locatelli has been a player who's impressed throughout the course of this campaign. I really, really like him, and I'd love to see him at Arsenal. But I get the impression, and I think there have been a few sort of murmurings from Italy this morning, that Manuel Locatelli's first choice, if he is to move on from Sassuolo this summer, which he probably will, is Juventus. And I can't see Manuel Locatelli moving away from the Serie A. I know there have been plenty of Italian players who have left Serie A in the past to go and play in other leagues, in other countries, but they tend to stay when the opportunity is there. When they get the chance to move to the likes of Juve, they more often than not prefer to do that than moving abroad. And it's why, for me, Serie A has improved dramatically over the last couple of seasons, because there is so much homegrown talent coming through, and that homegrown talent very rarely does what it does, for example, in, let's just say, the Netherlands, where you come through at Ajax, you get snapped up, Ajax sell you, and you move on. In Italy, it's a bit different. There are so many big historic football clubs that a lot of these players prefer to stay, and often they do that, and often they go on to have really, really good careers. You know, apart from Donnarumma and Jorginho, the rest of that Italian side that played last night were Italian-based, which is frightening to think about how much talent there is in that league that people have just completely overlooked. I really like Manuel Locatelli, but I do feel, first of all, his valuation has increased dramatically off the back of 2 decent performances at the European Championships. And secondly, I think his preference would be to stay in Italy, and I think he'll probably end up at Juventus, if I'm being completely honest. Let me pick out one more comment, one more question. What else have we got here? Inter says Grealish, Bissouma, and Onana would be perfect signings for me. I really like Jack Grealish. I think Bissouma, you don't know what Arsenal have got to spend. This is the point, right? We don't know if Arsenal are going to go sign Ben White, for example, knowing that they're going to recuperate some money from a few players that, are seemingly close to ceiling moves away, and then do it in a structured way, or, kind of bank on qualifying for Europe next season, which would see them close that deficit. We don't really know what the ins and outs of it are behind the scenes at the moment. But, I look at Ben White and I think, yeah, I'd like to have Ben White. I would. But is Ben White the priority? I don't know. Would Bissouma be more of a priority? I think probably yes. Would Jack Grealish be more of a priority? Yep. And if you're talking about paying 60 odd million for James Maddison, why not chuck an extra 10, 15 million on there and try and tempt Aston Villa into selling Jack Grealish? Because for me, he's on a different level to James Maddison. So, there's so much to think about here. Onana can be available for less than 10 million euros, and people are getting excited about Aaron Ramsdale, who's going to cost 20 million pounds. And as I saw someone tweet earlier on, he could hardly save a Word document, let alone stick him in goal for Arsenal. I don't know. It just feels all so chaotic, all so crazy, and also un-Arsenal-like. That's what concerns me. It just doesn't sit right with me at the moment. But let's see how it goes. I'm going to pick out one more question, actually, just before I go, because I've got to jump back on at work. But Bandelis says, does it concern you that other clubs who are probably better positioned from a football perspective aren't going for players like Ben White and Maddison? It's an interesting point. It's an interesting point. We know that there was interest in Ben White last summer. We thought there was going to be interest from a number of other clubs this time around as well. But it doesn't seem like anybody else has made a concrete move for Ben White, and Arsenal seemingly have. So let's see how that develops. But it's certainly a good point, and it's a good one that you raise. Inter says, we're agreeing, Harry. What's going on? Yeah, makes a change, doesn't it? Right. Big thank you to everybody who's joined us throughout the live stream, and to those of you who are going to be watching or listening to this back later on. Please, if you haven't done so already, because I can see there's over 200 of you with us at the moment, hit that like button. We've only got 54 likes. Let's get it up to 100 by the time the outro plays. There's more than enough of you in the chat to do that. It doesn't cost a thing. Check out our membership scheme if you'd like to, by clicking on the link in the description, and subscribe to the channel if you're new, as we edge closer, slowly, but we're edging closer towards that 14k mark on YouTube. So thank you all for your continued support, and I'll catch you all later tonight. Unless anything significant happens with regards to Arsenal transfer news, I'll catch you tonight live 10:15 p.m. for our Euro 2020 daily show. Till then, ciao.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.